All right, family. So this is part two, the time of the Gentiles, fulfillment of prophecy. If you haven't checked out the first part, please do so. Please do so. We're going to kick off the second part. Um, as you can see, this is very important. This is good information. And man, it makes you really look at the world a little different. But more importantly, it makes us see what's. It gives us the understanding of when it says the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. It gives us an understanding of what all has to take place and what will take place and what has taken place and so on and so forth. But anyway, family, without further ado, let's get started. Now, just a quick little recap. This is the book that we are reading from. Um, we'll be continuing on the rest of this part in this book right here. But I wanted to touch on something. So in part one, we seen that the name of the Rothschilds. Rothschild wasn't the original last name. It was Baron, I believe it was. And this red hexagram was called the red shield that was on the counting house of their fathers. Now, their name was changed to represent this. If you haven't checked out first part, I'm begging, please check out the first part. But the name was changed to represent this, meaning red shield. So the Roth means red in German, and Schild means shield. Now this family is a hexagram. They also say it's geometrically and numerically 666. Now I just want to start with this because a lot of our people, we believe that this is the Star of David. But in nowhere in scripture do you see David had a star. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of our people hold on to this, but if this means 666, what are we holding on to? Y'all get what I'm saying? If this means 666, I think we need to stay far away from this thing right here. In other words, and technically it's idolatry. It's idol. It's an idol. It's a graven image. You know what I'm saying? So just family, if this is something you hold on to, just I pray you reconsider. I pray you do your research and you look into it, and you'll see nowhere in the Bible. In fact, we see in the book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 26, we see. So it says, "But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Molech, and chewing your image, the star of your God, which you made to yourselves." So, I mean, family, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't see in scripture where David had a star, and you don't see in scripture where Yah tells us to honor a star, or, you know what I'm saying? It's just, but we see where it comes from. We see that this star actually came from uh, these Rothschilds, pretty much. And I'm sure I ain't saying it came from them and solely came from them. Um, it's an hexagram, family. It probably has deeper origins than that. But I'm just saying, it's something not right with it. We shouldn't be holding on to it. It shouldn't be something that we use to represent us or the movement or any of that, family. It's an engraven image. Now, before we actually get started here, You know, it was something I wanted to put in the first part and it slipped my mind. But, you know, shout out to Sean Sullivan, so my brother that left a comment about the Caucasian word comes from the Caucasus Mountain. Yes, that's true. Um, I want to show something though, right? Because he said it was in Turkey, and this is what you know, that's man. Hey, hallelujah. But I want to show something. So check this out. This is Revelation chapter 2, verse 12. Now, this is the message to this to when the message went out to the seven assemblies. Okay. Now check this out. It says, "And to the angel of the assembly of Pergamos, right? Write these things, says he that hath the sharp sword in the two edge." Verse 13 says, "I know thy works, and where thou dwell, even where Satan's seat is." See, let's hold on to that real fast. And actually, that's where we're going to stop. So a letter went out to those in the assembly of Pergamum, right? Or Pergamos, how we pronounce that. And it was mentioned that Satan's seat is there. Now, I want to show you something. Because now, let me read this. Because this is interesting. This is very interesting. Because it says Pergamum, this is Wikipedia, or Pergamum, right? Also referred to by its modern Greek form, Pergamos, was rich and powerful ancient Greek city in Mysia. It's located 26 kilometers from the modern coastline of the Aegean Sea on a promontory on the north side of the river Caucasus, right? Caucasus, or I guess that's Caucasus, but check this out though. Northwest of modern city of Bergama, Turkey. So what we got here, family, is this place that's being mentioned is near or in Turkey, right? Which fits into what we're talking. Now, anybody who lived there, now to the assemblies were there, right? Just because Satan's seat was there at the time, doesn't mean that they're following Satan, because these are the seven assemblies. This is one of the seven assemblies. But what it means is Satan is concocting his plan from there. Satan is trying to bring the servants down. So when we were reading in Revelations, where it says, "I know thy works and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is, and thou holdest fast my name." So they're holding fast the name, right? "And has not denied my faith, even these days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwells." So there were righteous servants, right, where Satan was dwelling. Now, I say all that to say this, because we see that in Revelation 2:9, right? Revelation 2:9. Let me scroll up. We touched on this. We touched on this last lesson. On Revelation 2:9, it says, "I know thy works in the tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Israel and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan." So we have an assembly of Satan, and we see that a certain group of people who are from the area, right, of the Turkey area, right, took on the name of which means 666. And we see in the Bible, it says that there's a people that is the assembly of Satan. It's something to think about, family. It's definitely something to think about. Now, also another thing that worth noting real fast before we continue. The Council of Nicaea, when Christianity was formed, Nicaea is next to Turkey. If not in Turkey, I don't know. I'm looking at these maps, I'm confused, but I'm saying all that stuff is in the same area. Now, these are good things worth noting. I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, shout out to the brother who said that. You're right. Caucasian comes from the word the Caucasus Mountains, and yes, it doesn't. It's just a name that was given to him because there was a certain group of people that lived in that area. I get that. But let's get started, family. I just want to share that before we get started. But we're gonna kick this right off right in the book. All right. Family, shout out to those who subscribe and like the video. Shout out to the new subscribers. And I really appreciate it. This is just to get the truth out. The more people that subscribe or like, the more people that will see it. That's how the algorithms work. So I just want to take the time to give y'all a shout out. But let's get started. Let's kick this off. All right, so we left off with David Sassoon and that whole situation with China and all that. And that was crazy. That was crazy. A whole war fought off of opium. It was actually called the Opium Wars. Like, this is not even taught in school. Like, when I was coming up, we hear about wars, but we hear the spin that they want us to know. So right now we down what? That's we got the War of 1812. We see that the Rothschilds did that because the central bank was removed. We got the what was the other one? The French Revolution. This is something they got hands into, and now we have an opium war, a war that was fought in China. Crazy, man. It's real crazy. So let's get started. All right. So in 1841, President John Tyler, the 10th president of the United States from 1841 to 1845, vetoes the act to renew the charter for the Bank of the United States, which the Rothschild agents had been tooting around Congress. He goes on to receive hundreds of letters threatening him with assassination. I wonder how many people when you look up the list of assassinations. I think I'm gonna do that towards the end of this, and because we know quite a good couple presidents were assassinated. Let's see how many people that was assassinated that took the presidency was assassinated because of you know who, right? But anyway, he received hundreds of letters threatening him with assassination. Crazy, real crazy, because he vetoed the bill. Now they really want this bank. Remember, they had the first bank of the United States and then the second bank of the United States. And Andrew Jackson is the one who did away with the second bank of the United States. So we seen that it was mentioned the third central bank that's going to get put up is the Federal Reserve, which is still the central bank of America today. We know that. But right now, in 1844, in this timeline, there is no central bank. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's read this right here. So it says, in this same year, 1844, Benjamin Disraeli, a Sephardic J, who would go on to become the British Prime Minister, published Coningsby, in which he characterized Nathan Mayer Rothschild as, listen what he called him, the Lord and Master of money markets of the world. And of course, virtually Lord and Master of everything. I'm gonna stop right there. You see how these people are viewed, right? Lord and Master of everything. Come on, family. Let's keep reading. He literally held the revenues of the southern Italy in pawn, and monarchs and ministers of all countries courted his advice and were guided by his suggestions. They made him like the modern day Solomon. I mean, Solomon wasn't called Lord and Master of everything, but people traveled from all over to get wisdom from Solomon. You know what I'm saying? Man, it's crazy. It's real crazy. He's called Lord and Master of everything. Now, I go back to what I said. Who do you see this family bowing down to? You follow me? Lord and Master of everything. Who are they going to bow down to? But this rally would also make the following interesting statement. The racial question is the key to the world. History. All is race. There is no other truth. I wonder what he meant by that. All right, so 1843, how you pronounce that? The Benai? All right, so in 1843, the Benai Berith is established by Jays in New York City as a Masonic lodge. 70 years later, this group will establish the notorious Anti-Defamation League, designed to smear and defame any critics of Jay's superism or criminality as anti-Semitic. So they're doing so much stuff, right? They're doing so much stuff. They don't even want you talking about it. You pay attention. Some people, they go out and they say, well, the Jays got all the money. They run all the businesses. They say stuff like that, and then they're smacked with anti-Semitism. You see what I'm saying? But they don't want it being spoken about. They don't want it to be public knowledge. All right, let's continue on. All right, so I guess we're going to come back to that. But in 1845, right, Andrew Jackson, the 7th president of the United States, dies. He leaves instructions for the following inscription to be placed upon his tombstone, in accordance with what he regarded as his greatest service to humanity. The inscription is, check what he has on his tombstone: I killed the bank. Yeah, man. Oh, man. This is done and is, of course, in reference to the fact that he destroyed the Rothschild's second bank of the United States in 1836. Interesting. Now check this one out, right? So in 1847, Lionel D. Rothschild, who is now married to the daughter of his uncle, Carl Mayer Rothschild, is elected to the parliamentary seat for the city of London. Now check this out. Keep doing that. A requirement for entering Parliament is to take an oath in the true faith of a Christian. Lionel D. Rothschild refuses to do so due to his Judaic faith, which renounces, they say, Christ. And as a result, his seat in Parliament remains empty for 11 years until new oaths are allowed. Interestingly, he managed to keep his parliamentary seat for 11 years while he remained unable to represent his constituency at any votes in Parliament during that time. You see the poor family. You see the poor. For 11 years, his seat was empty. Nobody could fill that seat. His seat was empty for 11 years. You're just seeing the poor. You're seeing the poor that they have. Now in 1848, Ashkenazi J. Karl Marx, a crypto J, real name Moses Mordecai Levy, publishes the Communist Manifesto. Interestingly, at the same time as he is working on this, Karl Ritter of Frankfurt University is writing the antithesis, which goes on to form the basis for Frederick Wilhelm, I can't pronounce that, Nietzsche. I'm sorry, family, but I got to try to pronounce it because this right here, this word, Nietzscheism. So maybe that's Nietzsche, right? So Nietzscheism. This Nietzscheism is later developed into fascism and Nazism and will be used to foment the First and Second World Wars. Now stop right there. It's Nazism. Now this came from the Jays. You see the thing here? That's it. It gets interesting. It really does get interesting. But you see the thing here, right? Okay. But it gets interesting. Let's keep reading. Marx Ritter and Nietzsche, I really apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but Nietzsche are all funded and under the instructions of the Rothschilds. See? The idea behind this scheme is that those who direct the overall conspiracy could use the differences in so-called ideologies to enable them to divide larger and larger factions of the human race into opposing camps so that they could be armed and then brainwashed into fighting and destroying each other, and particularly in destroying all political and religious institutions. This is essentially the same plan put forward by Weishaupt in 1776. And remember, Weishaupt was the person who is being credited for starting the Illuminati. But we know deeper than that, the plans was drawn up by the Rothschilds. Let's keep going. Interestingly, Marxism, communism, and its derivative, socialism, when seen years later in practice, are nothing but state capitalism and ruled by a privileged minority exercising despotic and total control over a majority, which is left with virtually no property or legal rights. This explains why the Rothschilds were so interested in funding these ideologies, which would subsequently develop into a democracy, a system of the two-party state in which both parties are controlled by the same force. And while they may squabble over insignificant issues to give the impression of opposing one another, they actually follow the same basic ideology. This is why the inhabitants of democracy soon discover that it doesn't matter who they vote for, nothing ever changes. Don't we know that, family? Don't we know that? This is a gem right here, 1849. Guttel, or Gutley, Schnapper, Mayor Amschel Rothschild wife, dies. Before her death, she would nonchalantly state, check it out. If my sons did not want wars, there would be none. I even took the time to Google this one. She said this. If my sons did not want wars, there would be none. Wow. Saying that pretty much every war they got a hand in. Makes you think about when we started this lesson off in the book of, I believe we started in Luke, and it says when you hear wars and rumor of wars and stuff like that. I mean, if they got a hand in every war, let's see if they got a hand in every war. So far we got what? 3? Yeah, so far we got 3. So let's keep going. All right. Down in 1856. Keep in mind, family, this goes in chronological order. So different events that happen, we're going to read about it. So we might be talking about one story, then we go to something else, and we come back to that story because everything is in chronological order, okay? So in 1856, check this out. On May 6th, Ashkenazi J, psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud is born. Now, if anybody who went to college or high advanced high school classes may have, not necessarily just because you went to college or it was in advanced schooling, you probably just could have been a reader or whatever. Anybody knows about psychology, stuff like that. Know who Sigmund Freud is. All right. Now check out Sigmund Freud. There's something you probably didn't know about Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud will go on to attack the Western morality, criticizing what he considered Western man's neurotic emphasis on sex, which he insisted should be replaced with Jayish values of promiscuity. Interestingly, he promoted the idea of incest and pedophilia as normal, something also permitted by the J's most holy book, the Talmud. Now, family, this man invented psychology. He was into pedophilia and incest. I mean, that's why I said everything. When you go into its roots of certain things, everything, most things has a crazy origin or root. You know what I mean? Like, man. All right. So check this out. So we just read on this story, this Lionel D. Rothschild guy, right? So 1858, Lionel D. Rothschild finally takes his seat in the parliament when the requirement to take an oath in the true faith of Christian is broadened to include other oaths. He becomes the first openly Jewish member of the British Parliament. I'm telling you, man, they got pulled, family. They got pulled. So on July 12th, this man named Lord Harrington gives a speech in the House of Lords opposing the admission of Jewish immigrants to England, in which he states the following: they are the great moneylenders and loan contractors of the world. The consequence is that the nation of the world are groaning under heavy systems of taxation and national debt. They have ever been the greatest enemy of freedom. That's what I said, family. What are you free from? What are you free from? Freedom don't really come until our Messiah comes back, until Yah comes back, till Yah comes and his order, his true order is established in the world. Right now, this is Satan's world. So what are we free from? You know what I'm saying? It's everyday battles, everyday fight. But you see, people know, especially back then. It's like people are more ignorant now. It's like we talking about the debt ceiling and you know, paying taxes and stuff like that. And I mean, family, they got the world in bondage. Once they put their tentacles on it, they got it. So this statement is made, right? In England. Now keep in mind, this is 1858. This is the year 1858. During this time, America, the United States, still have not received the third central bank. Right? We gonna see. That's gonna change. Obviously it is, right? All that's gonna change. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now this is where we get a little deep. I want you to pay attention. All right. All right. So in the year 1860, in the American South, since American independence, a close business relationship had developed between the cotton growing aristocracy and the cotton manufacturers in England. The cotton was even delivered from America to France and Britain on Rothschild's own ships. The Rothschilds decided that this was America's Achilles heel that they could exploit to reestablish themselves in America. Remember, they're still trying to get this bank back, family. Following the destruction of their central bank by President Andrew Jackson in 1836. All right, let's see what happens. The Rothschilds had prepared long for this. And this year, the southern states of America contained a vast number of Rothschild's agents. See, they send their agents out there, right? I think 007 and all that stuff is about, right? Okay, let's keep going. They carefully manipulated the population by conspiring with local politicians that they had in their pocket and spreading propaganda amongst the people. This resulted in the secession of the South Carolina on December 29th, 1860. Only a few weeks later, another 6 states would joined the conspiracy against the Union and formed a breakaway nation called the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as its president. Now, for anybody who don't know what the Union is, I took the time to Google it. But I mean, a lot of people know, but just in case, just so we can keep the same understanding, we can know what we're reading. So this is Wikipedia on the Union. All right. During the American Civil War, the Union, also known as the North, right? So the Union were the North, right? Referred to the United States remaining after succession of 11 southern states to form the Confederate States of America, and from informally called the Confederacy or the South. So you got the Confederate States and you got the Union, but they were all united before, right? The Union, led by President. All right, we're going to get back to that. Let's get back over here. So the Union is what we would refer to as the North, because the southern states broke away, right? Okay. So the Confederate States of America with Jefferson Davis as its president. Okay. So they also elected a president, looks like, right? Southern states. All right, so it reads, in order to provoke the North, these Rothschild agents and their brainwashing followers raid armies, seize forts, arsenals, mints, and other Union property. Even members of President Buchanan's cabinet conspired to destroy the Union by damaging the public credit and working to bankrupt the nation. Buchanan claims to deplore secession, but takes no steps to check it. So this president didn't step up and fix the issue, right? It says, even when a United ship is fired upon by South Carolina shore batteries. I want y'all to think about this. Like, can you imagine America in this time? I mean, you got the South going to war, guerrilla warfare tactics. And this is before the actual war, the Civil War. This is before that. You got states going against other states, and man, the South going against the North. And it looked like the South was the aggressor in this so far right now. It really looks like it. All right, so let's go. Let's get deep. Let's keep reading. So in the year 1861, 1 month after the inauguration of President Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States from 1860 to his assassination in 1865, he was only president for 5 years. The American Civil War gets underway at Fort Sumter. South Carolina. After South Carolina leaves the Union, so the war gets underway after South Carolina backs out too, right? So President Abraham Lincoln is obviously confronting his enemy, right? Let's keep going. Slavery has always been cited as the cause for the war, but this was simply not the case, as President Lincoln himself stated. I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it now exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. My paramount objective is to save the Union, and it is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. Now, I want y'all to think about this, right? Because a lot of people credit Abraham Lincoln for freeing the slaves. Abraham Lincoln did not want to free the slaves. Abraham Lincoln wanted to unite his country again, so to speak. He wanted to stop the guerrilla warfare, right? Now, if you think about it, right? It's just me thinking, and just me thinking, and the movies that I watched and the history I know about it, just me making a conclusion. Freeing the slaves gave the North more soldiers. You'll see that. Remember, we see it in movies. I forget the movie that just came out. I was just watching. Yeah, I forget the movie I watched. But you think about the movie with Denzel in it. I forget the Glory, stuff like that, right? But you got movies showing you where they'll come to a ex-slave who make it to the North and be like, "You're no longer a slave. You're free. Here, give them a rifle. Fight for your country." So Abraham Lincoln, it was kind of like genius on his part to win, because now he's adding soldiers on his field. But as you see, if he could have did it without freeing one slave, he would have did it. Stop crediting him with stopping slavery. You know what I mean? I mean, if you, I mean, listen, I'm thankful that it took place, because we could have all been slaves in these times. So it's good that it happened. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, just keep in mind that he never wanted it to happen in the first place. So I'm grateful that it happened, where we don't have to be sitting there picking cotton and stuff like that. But he was all for slavery. I'm just saying that. All right. So let's keep going. So it says, now let's see why this war started. So it says the real reason for the war is that the southern states were in a dire economic situation due to the actions of the northern states. How so? When we see that the guerrilla warfare taking place and stuff was the South. It looked like the South was the aggressor, right? We see that the Rothschilds had agents in the South and sparked up the South, got the South to leave the Union and start a confederacy, right? We see that. So reading right here, it says that the North is the reason for the war. Let's read that again. It says the reason for the war is that the southern states were in dire economic situation due to the actions of the northern states. Northern industrialists had used trade tariffs, there we go, to prevent the southern states from buying cheaper European goods. Europe subsequently retaliated by stopping cotton imports from the South. Thus, the South had been forced to pay more for goods while having their income slashed. Very, very interesting. That is very interesting. So let's look at this. What's this tariffs that we're seeing, right? What's this that they're talking about? Okay, let's read a little bit of this, right? So, this website, the relationship, cotton prices, and the tariffs. All right, so it says planners knew when tariffs rates go up, cotton prices go down. They also knew that when in power, the Republicans would raise tariff rates. Cotton prices would consequently fall to ruinous levels. They would face poverty, certain and severe. The following chart shows the relationship between the tariff rates and the cotton prices over the period of years after the Republicans came to power and after the war's effect on prices had begun to settle. All right, so it's the chart they got here. All right, let's keep going though. But you see it went down. All right. There are no high cotton prices after high tariff rates, and no low cotton prices at low tariff rates. Fluctuations due to superabundant harvests, crop failures, and depredations by the boll weevil are small compared to the enormous impact of high tariff rates. The rise of tariff rates from the lowest at 15% to the highest at 55% causes cotton prices to fall from 35 cents per pound to about 5 cents per pound. Wow, that is a big jump. This is an 85% drop in income for the southern cotton plantation. This is the drop in normal prices. The actual purchasing power of cotton to buy other commodities and adjustments of cotton prices for the general prices levels require consideration of some additional factors. All right, let's keep reading. That would be a spectacular and ruinous drop in the income for any business. Moreover, the planters, the southern people, right? The people who plant the cotton, would be unable to lay off their workers. Their workers, the slaves, still had to be fed, clothed, housed, and provided with health care. Now let's think about that for a minute. So when in today's time, like when a company starts to sell less of its product, what do? They lay off. But in the South, they were not, they were a business, but their employees were their slaves. They wasn't about to free their slaves, but they still had to feed them. Now, I get it. You might say, well, they didn't really care about us. Yeah, but if they die, if the slaves die, that free labor is gone. So this poses as a very interesting problem for the South. Now, if you ask me, I think this was something that Lincoln did to get back at him. You see what I'm saying? Let's keep reading. All right. Based on Representative George Smith Houston estimate of increased revenue to be gained by the increased tariff rates in Morrill Tariff Bill of 1860 and the relationship shown above, each dollar of increased federal revenue by the tariff would cause the South more than $3 in lost cotton and tobacco revenue alone. Tax money always has to be taken from somewhere. When it is taken, it comes with a multiplied loss to the free market activity from which it is taken. Exactly how raising tariff rates could cause cotton prices to fall was not obvious to many in the North. After all, the North had to pay the same tariff rate on its imports as did the South. Interesting, right? So they raised the tariff rate and it affected the North as well, but look how it affected the South. Let's keep reading. How could such a tax be reason for the South, but not for the North to secede from the Union? Moreover, cotton was an export product and there were no federal taxes on exports. How could taxes on imports affect the price of exported cotton? And they're asking that question. Let's keep reading. The answer lies in the fact that the South, unlike the North, was dependent on foreign trade for the majority of its income. Southerners earned most of their money by selling cotton and tobacco to foreigners, Europe, Britain, much more than the other nations, purchased the lion's share of the Southern cotton. The high tariff imposed on U.S. import severely diminished European ability to earn dollars by exporting their goods to us. A large portion of the revenue from the sales of their goods to us would not go into European pockets, but to the U.S. Treasury instead. Now that's interesting. The European would have fewer dollars left over with which to buy our agricultural products. With fewer dollars in European pockets available to purchase of cotton, the prices of cotton must plunge in order to meet the reduced amount of money available in the markets for its purchase. The South, therefore, like the low import tax rates, because of the low import taxes, meant that the foreigners had more money left over to bid for cotton. Under low tariff rates, high cotton prices would be a sure thing. Now, I'm gonna leave that. We're just gonna get right back to it, but just giving you an understanding of what the tariffs was, right? What the tariffs was, and how it affected the South. So we see something real interesting here. So it looked like the North made a move Now, it said that in that website, it said that the North might have not been knowledgeable that was affecting the South, and that is possible. But what if it was in the knowledge? What if Abraham or the powers to be knew that this would affect the South, and that's why he did it? So this is the reason for the Civil War. Well, it's not the only reason, because we know the origin of the reason was the Rothschilds. Divide and conquer, right? Let's keep reading. All right. Did I read that? Yeah, I did. Okay, so it says here, this is when the money changers saw opportunity divide and conquer. Well, I just said that. Divide and conquer America by plunging it into the Civil War. This is confirmed by Otto von Bismarck when he was Chancellor of Germany in 1871 to 1890, who stated the following in 1876. What did he say? The division of the United States into federations of equal forces was decided long before the Civil War by the high financial powers of Europe. See, these bankers were afraid that the United States, if they remain as one bloc and as one nation, would attain economic and financial independence, which would upset their financial domination over the world. I want y'all to think about this. Think about when you were in school, right? And they made you salute the flag and all that. And what they made you say, you had to put your hand on your chest and be like, one nation, under God, indivisible. Remember that? Well, I mean, I think that's they put that in the mind. That's why they make you recite it. They make you recite it so you can think that. But really, it's a nation dependent on them, just like the rest of the world. Just like the rest of the world. It's real interesting, though. You think about it, when you read into this history stuff, man. Listen, let's keep going. The voice of the Rothschilds predominated and foresaw the tremendous booty. Booty just means money, family, the wealth, right? If they could substitute two feeble democracies indebted to the financiers for the vigorous republic, confident and self-providing. Therefore, they started their emissaries in order to exploit the questions of slavery and thus dig an abyss between two parts of the Republican. Wow. So, indeed, only months after these first shots in South Carolina, the Rothschilds loaned Napoleon III of France, the Napoleon of the Battle of Waterloo's nephew, so this is the nephew, right? 210 million francs to seize Mexico and then station troops along the southern border of the United States, taking advantage of the American Civil War to return Mexico into colonial rule. So Rothschilds got deep with it. So they go to the nephew, right, of Napoleon and get troops to go along the south towards, what did it say? South, to seize Mexico at the southern border, right? All while the Civil War is about to take place. Now, a lot of people don't even know this. I mean, it's news to a lot of people. This shows you the game that the Rothschilds is playing. They're playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Well, let's keep reading. This is crazy. So it says this was a violation of the Monroe Doctrine, which was issued by President James Monroe during his 7th annual State of the Union address to Congress in 1823. This doctrine proclaimed the United States' opinion that European powers should no longer colonialize the Americans or interfere with the affairs of sovereign nations located in the Americas, such as the United States, Mexico's, and others, right? In return, the United States planned to stay neutral in wars between Europe powers European powers and in wars between European powers and its colonies. However, if these later type of wars were to occur in the Americas, the United States would view such action as hostile towards itself. So they had an agreement, and the Rothschilds broke it. All right. While the French were while the French were breaching the Monroe Doctrine in Mexico, the British followed suit by moving 11,000 troops into Canada and positioning them along America's northern border. Stop right there. Oh, this is taking place during the Civil War. Wow. Let's keep reading. That, man. So President Lincoln knew he was in trouble. He went with his secretary to the Treasury, Solomon P. Chase, to New York to apply for loans necessary to fund America's defense. So he got troops all around him. Let's keep reading. The Rothschilds had engineered the war to make the Union fail. Remember, the Union is the North. So they wanted the North to fail, right? And we're not about to save it now. So they instructed their American banks to offer loans at 24% to 36% interest. Wow. President Lincoln declined this as they knew he would and returned to Washington, where he sent his colonial Dick Taylor of Chicago, who he put in charge of the problem of how he should finance the war. So he ain't got money to finance the war. So he's not taking their loans. He's not doing none of that. What does he do? So during one of the meetings, President Lincoln asked Colonial Taylor what proposal he had come up with to finance the war. Colonial Taylor stated, "Why, Lincoln, that is easy. Just get Congress to pass a bill authorizing the printing of full legal tender Treasury notes and pay your soldiers with them and go ahead and win your war with them also." So President Lincoln asked Colonial Taylor if the people of the United States would accept the notes, to which Colonial Taylor replied, "The people or anyone else will not have any choice in the matter if you make them full legal tender. They will have the full sanction of the government and be just as good as any money Congress is given that express right by its Constitution." So listen, family, if you say it's money, it's money. You're the president, right? Right? Very interesting. So let's see what happens. So in 1862, President Lincoln begins the printing of 450 million worth of American currency. These bills are printed on green ink on the reverse side in order to distinguish them from the other bills in circulation and are called greenbacks. Remember greenbacks, family? Heard the term greenbacks before, right? These are printed at no interest to the federal government and are used to pay the troops and purchase their supplies. President Lincoln would be the last president to issue debt-free United States notes. And on this subject, he states, "The government should create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credit needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of consumers. The privilege of creating and issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of the government, but it is in the government's greatest creative opportunity. By the adoption of these principles, the taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be the master and become the servant of humanity." Wow, very powerful words. He also states, "We gave the people of this republic the greatest blessing they ever had, their own paper money to pay their own debts. Ain't that something? That same year, the Times of London illustrates who's pulling its strings when it publishes a story containing the following statements. If the mischievous financial policy, which had its origins in North American Republic, should become indurated down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off debts and be without a debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of civilized governments of the world. The brains and the wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. Oh, check that out, family. Yeah, that was a good move by Abraham Lincoln, but let's keep going. A hazard circular from the Rothschilds controlled Bank of England comes to light some years later that provides further information as to why Lincoln's debt-free money, the greenback, had to be stopped. Slavery is likely to be abolished by the war, power, and chattel slavery destroyed. This I and my Jayish European friends are glad of, for slavery is but the owning of labor and carries with it the care of the laborers, while the European plan, led by England, is that capital shall control labor by controlling wages. Now, basically, what saying here is, they hate the situation so much that they're saying slavery is about to be abolished, right? And they're happy about it, right? But keep in mind, we just read that the cotton trade took place on Rothschild ships. So they was okay with slavery, but now that America is turning their backs on them, not needing them, they're like, all right, let's do away with slavery. So pretty much, family, the Rothschilds was happy that slavery was about to be done because they wanted America to be depending upon them, right? But let's keep going. He said, okay, this can be done by controlling the money. The great debt that capitalists will see to it is made. All right. Out of the war must be used as a means to control the volume of money. To accomplish this, the bonds must be used as a banking basis. We are now waiting for the Secretary of Treasury to make his recommendation to the Congress. It will not do to allow the greenbacks, as it is called, to circulate as money any length of time, as we cannot control that. So they have a problem with these greenbacks. Now check this out. Now, y'all remember the Tsar in part 1, right? The Tsar of Russia. All right, check this out. So in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln discovered Tsar of Russia Alexander II has been having problems with the Rothschild as well. Remember, they threatened him. They said they were going to kill him and his family, right? And remember, the Tsar, this same family is the reason why they didn't have their one world order, right? Their one world government. Because they was pushing for it back then. They were pushing for it, but this family stood in the way. So Abraham Lincoln, what is it? What's the saying? Friend of my enemy is a friend of mine. No. And something like that. Yo, never mind. Let's keep going. I'm messing stuff up. Let me just keep going. But basically, he sided with the enemy of the Rothschilds. So President Abraham Lincoln discovers the Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, has been having problems with the Rothschild as well, as he had been refusing their continual attempts to set up a central bank in Russia. The Tsar then gives President Lincoln some unexpected help. Check that out. The Tsar issues orders that if either England or France actively intervene in the American Civil War to help the South, Russia would consider such an action declaration of war and take the side of the President Lincoln to show that he wasn't messing up, to show that he wasn't messing about. He sends a part of his Pacific Fleet to the port of San Francisco and another port to the port of New York. So Russia gets into it and they send their fleet as well. Wow, you got all this taking place during the Civil War, man. All this stuff is taking place during the Civil War. 1864. President Lincoln is reelected on November 8th, and on November 21st, he writes a friend the following: "The money power preys upon the nation in times of peace and conspires against it in times of adversity. It is more despotic than monarchy, more insolent than autocracy, more selfish than bureaucracy." Rothschild's agent, August Belmont, who is the Democratic Party national chairman, supports General George McClellan as a Democratic nominee to run against President Abraham Lincoln in this year's election. Much to the anger of Belmont, President Lincoln wins the election. Of course he does. In 1865, in a statement to Congress, President Abraham Lincoln states, "I have two great enemies, the Southern Army in front of me," which is the South that he's fighting, "and the financial institution in the rear. Of the two, the one in my rear is the greatest foe." So he said the banks. He talked about the Rothschilds. He's saying that even though he's fighting the South, he's saying the Rothschilds is the greater enemy because he understands that they're the ones who started this. They stirred this all up, family. They stirred this all up. All right. So on April 14th, 41 days after his second inauguration and just 5 days after General Lee surrendered to the General Grant at Appomattox, President Lincoln is shot by John Wilkes Booth at the Ford Theater. He would later die of his injuries less than 2 months before the end of the American Civil War. All right, so we know about that. We know about John Wilkes Booth and all that, right? More than 70 years later, Booth's granddaughter, Izola Forrester, reveals in her book on Booth this one mad act, that he had been put up to this assassination by powerful interests in Europe, and contrary to reports that Booth was later killed by American authorities, he actually escaped to Europe and died in Calais at the age of 39. Wow, how many people knew that? Subsequent allegations that the international bankers were responsible for President Lincoln's assassination would be made in the Canadian House of Commons nearly 70 years later. In 1934, the person who revealed this was the Canadian attorney Gerald G. McGeer. He had obtained evidence deleted from the public record provided to him by the Secret Service agents at the trial of John Wilkes Booth. After Booth's alleged death, McGeer stated that it showed that John Wilkes Booth was a mercenary working for the international bankers. His speech would be reported in an article in the Vancouver Sun dated 2nd May 1934, which states, why none of this in the news, family? You see that? Because they control the media. Let's get rid of it. Abraham Lincoln, the murderer, emancipator of the slaves, was assassinated through the machinations of the group of representatives of the international bankers who feared the United States president's national credit ambitions. There was only one group in the world at that time that had any reason to desire the death of Lincoln. They were the men opposed to his national currency program and who have fought him throughout the whole Civil War on his policy of greenback currency. Gerald G. McGeer also stated that Lincoln's assassination was not purely because of the international bankers wanted to reestablish the central bank in America, but also because they wanted to base America's currency on gold, which they, of course, controlled. They wanted to put America on a gold standard. This was in direct opposition of President Lincoln's policy for issuing the greenbacks, based solely on the good faith and credit of the United States. The Vancouver Sun article also quoted Gerald G. McGeer with the following statement. They were the men interested in the establishment of the gold standard and the right of the bankers to manage the currency and credit of every nation in the world. With Lincoln out of the way, they were able to proceed with the plan and did proceed with it in the United States. Within 8 years after Lincoln's assassination, silver was demonetized and the gold standard system was set up in the United States. Interestingly, there has been much speculation that Abraham Lincoln was actually the illegitimate son of A. Springs, a pre-crypto J named Springsteen, a Rothschild. Whoa. 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 That would be something. He was related to the Rothschilds. That would be something. Wow. All right, let's keep going. Following a brief training period in the Rothschilds' London bank, Jacob Schiff, a Rothschild born in their house in Frankfurt, arrives in America. Watch this Jacob Schiff. He's a piece of work. Arrives in America at the age of 18 with instructions and the finance necessary to buy into the banking house there. The purpose of this is to carry out the following tasks. Gain control of America's money system through the establishment of the central bank. Find desirable men who, for a price, are willing to serve as stooges for the Illuminati and promote them into high places in the federal government, the Congress, the Supreme Court, and all federal agencies. Create minority group strife throughout the nation. Pay attention to 3 too. Create minority group strife throughout the nation, particularly targeting the whites and the blacks. All right, pay attention. Number 3. 4. Create a movement to destroy religion in the United States with Christianity as the main target. All right, we'll come back to that. His name's going to come back up. Watch him. Remember what number 3 was. So in 1869, at the funeral of Grand Rabbi Simon ben Judah, Rabbi Richorn makes the following revealing statement. Thanks to the terrible power of the international banks, we have forced the Christians into wars without number. Wars have a special value for Jays since Christians massacre each other and make more room for us Jays. Wars are the Jays' harvest. The Jays' bank grow fat on Christian wars. Over 100 million Christians have been swept off the face of the earth by wars, and the end is not yet. Man, some of these statements and stuff, they show their head, you know what I mean, and their power, but, man. Okay, so in 1871, here's another deep one. There's another one you got to watch. All right, so in 1871, an American general named Albert Pike, who had been enticed into the Illuminati by Giuseppe Mazzini, completes his military blueprint for 3 world wars and various. Hold on. He creates the blueprint for 3 world wars. We only had 2. Let's read this. Come on, let's keep reading. Right? So he creates the blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, culminating into moving this great conspiracy into its final stage. These details are as follows. Now, keep in mind, not one world war has been fought yet. So he creates the blueprint. Okay, let's see what he got. So, for the First World War is to be fought for the purpose of destroying the Tsar in Russia. Stop right there. Remember the threat. Remember the threat to that family, right? So the purpose is to destroy the Tsar in Russia. As promised by Nathan Mayer Rothschild in 1815, the Tsar is to be replaced with communism, which is to be used to attack religions, predominantly Christianity. The differences between the British and the German empires are to be used to foment this war. Wow. So, I mean, yeah, that did take place, right? Okay. The Second World War is to be used to foment the controversy between fascism and political Zionism with the oppression of the Jays in Germany, a linchpin in bringing hatred against the German people. This is designed to destroy fascism, which the Rothschilds created, and increase the power of political Zionism. This war is also designed to increase the power of communism to the level that it equals that of the United Christendom. Wow. Oh, man. The Third World War is to be, remember, this one ain't happening yet, so let's just read it. The Third World War is to be played out by stirring up hatred of the Muslim world for the purpose of playing the Islamic world and the political Zionists off against one another. While this is going on and remaining, the remaining nations will be forced to fight themselves into a state of mental, physical, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Yo, I mean, family. Now we living in the times where the Third World War has not happened, but aren't we seeing a lot of problems over in the so-called Middle East with, you know, the Israelis and the Islamic, or the Jays and the Arabs, or so to speak? We're in the time of, suicide bombers and stuff like that. So, I mean, wow. Now, he wrote this back. Let me see. He wrote this back in 1871. In 1871, this was written out. Come on now. All right, let's keep going. On August 15th of this year, Albert Pike writes a letter now cataloged in the British Museum. So this letter is in the British Museum to Giuseppe Mazzini, in which he states the following. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social catalysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism. The origins of savagery and the most bloody turmoil. Wow. He's talking about unleashing all this. Then everywhere the people will be forced to defend themselves against the world minority of the world revolutionaries, and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose spirits will be from that moment without direction and leadership, and anxiety for an idea. Wow. But without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view. I want y'all to stop real fast. All right, so this man said a mouthful, family. But the goal is to bring out the doctrine of Lucifer. Don't you see the world getting even more evil? Like, people are embracing some of the most devilish things. I mean, you think about what look what our youth is saying. You go out and you made a name for yourself out in the street because you're playing with them guns. They say you on demon time. There's songs where I even heard a song where the guy y'all know what I'm talking about when I say it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna find it for y'all too. Okay, I brought it up real fast. I'm gonna get this thing out. This is the song that just came to mind real fast. You hear it on the radio a lot. It's Future and Thames. And I know I mean any of y'all that listen to radio, you're like Holloway, Trap Around the World. But listen, look at the verse 1. Every time I would hear it on the radio, I very rarely listen to the radio. I more so hear it at work. But in verse 1, Future says, "You pray for my demons. Girl, I got you." Now you can look at that and be like, nah, he's saying if you praying that the demons, don't attack me or something like that. Nah, he's saying you praying for my demons. Remember, these young boys is on demon time. So I'm just saying, like, the devil worshiping is when you see stuff like this, that it is gonna go out mainstream, you kind of like starting to see it. You are. I remember they was making a big deal about that statue. It was a statue. Yeah, it was a satanic statue erected. I just found it. Check this out.
Temple of Illinois has set up a controversial display in the state capitol, and it's resulted in protests, but the group defends its right to express its beliefs.
The Capitol welcomes a diverse range of religions every year to display holiday statues during the holiday season, and so we wanted to join in on that.
It's the third year the Satanic Temple has put on this display. The group says it represents unity and compassion. Christian protesters demonstrated against the temple. The state of Illinois Rotunda is a public place, so officials say it can't censor the satanic content.
Tell me that ain't crazy. Now, how many times? Look at that. Look what she's throwing up. You see that all around, family. People are throwing that up. It's the Baphomet sign. It's basically Satan worship, whether they know it or not. Gang members throw it up. They got it. They got a lot of people throwing it up, like even in like it's names for play calling and stuff like that. Now get it. I understand that y'all gave us fingers and hands, right? Like you take sign language, for example. You stick the thumb out, it means I love you. Somebody who's deaf, that's the way they say I love you. That's just their language. It's just like the language we speak is a bastard language. If we speak English, we say things that and its origins has roots to worshiping gods, goddesses, Satan, whatever. So for a person who's deaf and speaks through their hands, if they're saying I love you, it's truly I love you. But you got people throwing that same sign up that is not deaf and they're not saying I love you. It's supposed to represent gang or something like that. But what I'm saying is you see it out in the open, family. You see it out in the open. Now, I'm going to say this real fast because I'm sitting here thinking about it. Isn't Chicago where drill music started at? Now, this temple's in Illinois. This satanic display is in Illinois. Illinois is the state. Chicago is it's the capital. I mean, call me reaching or something. I could be reaching, but it's like almost like some kind of crazy evilness was unleashed on that place. Because if you look at the drill music, it's leading to a lot of our youth going out here with guns and killing each other. Now, there was killing was always popular, even before the drill music movement. But now they taunt the dead. They taunt the deceased. The people that are dead, they can't respond, they can't hear them, but their loved ones are left back wanting to retaliate or, what they call spin the block on their ops, right? That stuff came from Chicago. Now we know we in some times. We know we in some time. So all the blame isn't on Chicago, but what I'm saying is, and none of the blame's on, it's Satan. It's the blame, really. But what I'm saying to you is we are seeing it out in the open. Hold on, I got some more. All right. Now I remember seeing this on social media. All right, so this is like some kind of Disney thing. You see what they're holding up, right? It says, "We love you." Now, in the word Santa, if you take the N and move it to the N, it spells Satan. Disney claims this was a misunderstanding or whatever. But I don't know. It's just the closer we get to these times, man. The closer we get to these times. Now, this is just a Google search on devilish hand signs. You see what the Pope's throwing up? A cardinal. You see the "I love you," but they took it to mean, like I said, if somebody's hearing impaired, that's the way of communicating. Can't knock them. If you're not trying to speak silent language and you're just throwing that up because you're trying to say gang, gang, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you see this all the time. Somebody takes a picture, and they pose, you're going to see these signs. I'm just showing you that it's already out in the open, but it's going to be open and out in the open even more, according to Albert Pike. All right, let's see what he said again. He said that. Let's read it again. He says, "Then everywhere people will be forced into defend themselves against the world minority of the world revolutionaries and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusions with Christianity, whose spirits will be from that moment without direction." He's saying that the Christians, they're going to be without direction, right? Because the leaders is not going to have an answer, right? The leaders are not going to have an answer for them. So they're going to be without direction, according to him, right? He said, "And the leadership and anxious for an idea, but without knowledge." So the leadership is going to be looking for an idea or whatever, but they don't have the knowledge. Scripture says that my people have a zeal without knowledge. So if you don't have a love for the truth, you're going to be given over to the strong delusion. That's 2 Thessalonians. But check this out. He says, "But without knowledge, where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view." Now, we already seeing it go into the public view. And get right with y'all, family. Get right. All right, let's get ready. He says, "A manifestation which will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." See, these people want to do away with anything that has anything to do with the Bible, because Christians, they carry the Bible, right? Okay. So he just want to do away with that. And atheism. And basically any other religion. But atheism, because he wants you to get to the point where you acknowledge Satan is the master. You see what I'm saying? So if you're atheist, if you believe in nothing, technically, if you believe in nothing, you fall under the category of Satan's, right? But it's going to get to the point where it's going to be out in the open. Man, let's keep going. Pike, who had been elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry Southern Jurisdiction in 1859, was the most powerful Freemason in America. He would retain that post for 32 years until his death in 1891. He also published a book on the subject in 1872 entitled Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, in which he candidly states the following. And before we get to what he states in this book, this is a book that is read by the Freemasons, the Masons. This is a book that they honor. So he says, check this out. This is where it gets crazy. He says, the true name of Satan, the Kabbalah says, is that of Yahweh reverse. Wow. For Satan is not a black god, but a negation of God. For the initiates, this is not a person, but a force created for good, but which may serve for evil. It is the instrument of liberty and free will. Wow. Let's keep reading. He says, Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light and with its splendor, intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. Wow. Now you gotta be gotta be careful with people like this. But see, there's people that follow him, even in the hip hop community. Now, Satan was called the son of the morning one time, but then he fell from his grace. But these people who worship him, they still give him these titles. You gotta watch music in the industry. You gotta watch all that, because they will have you saying things you ought not be saying. Matter of fact, there's a song, old song, came out. When that song come out? By Jay-Z. A while ago. Came on one of his classic albums. Had you praising Lucifer. Matter of fact, the song is actually called Lucifer. Never noticed that. But just showing you the lyrics. Now everybody my age knows this song. Maybe the younger generation probably didn't hear it or whatever, but I don't even want to pronounce what he's saying. But that right there in those lyrics is connected into the beat. It's connected into the beat. You see what he's saying? Lucifer, son of the morning. I'm going to chase you out of the earth, right? Lucifer, son of the morning. And then he turns around and says, I'm from the murder capital where we murder for capital. So is he really chasing Satan out of the earth, or is he praising him? That's not for me to decide. But what I'm saying is, why would you even put that in a song and then put it into the beat? And it's a catchy beat. And you got people, come on, man. Lucifer's not son of the morning no more, man. He's not. But I'm just showing you. So they go on to say, interestingly, in the same book, Pike emphasizes that Freemasonry is a religion based on the occult Jayish philosophy found in the Kabbalah. Wow. Real crazy. All right, so let's skip down to 1880. Check this out. I'm showing you the mindset of this family. Check this out. So Rothschild's agents begin fomenting a series, 1880, fomenting a series of pogroms, predominantly in Russia, but also in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. These pogroms results in the slaughter of thousands of Jays. Stop right there. The Rothschilds are Jays, ain't they? Hey, Jays. They created something to slaughter 1,000 of Jays. Let's keep reading. Let's just keep reading. Let's keep reading. That is crazy. Causing approximately 2 million, talking about Jays, to flee, mainly to New York, but also to Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, and Los Angeles. Hold on, those are all United States cities, right? Those are all United States cities. But let's go back. It says that these pogroms was formed and pursued in Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. So they wanted to make it uncomfortable for the Jays in Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania, but they wanted them to leave those places and come to America. So instead of just asking them, or you start slaughtering them, your own, you start slaughtering your own. Really? Oh, wow. I mean, who thinks like that, man? Who truly, who thinks like that? Let's keep reading. However, some are assisted with Rothschild's money to begin settling in Palestine. Very interesting. Remember, they're not in the land of Israel at this time. They're all over, right? They're here, they're there. Okay. So, finishes off the states. It says the reason these programs were initiated was to create a large Jayist base in America, who, when they arrive, will be educated to register as Democratic voters. Some 20 years later, this would result in a massive Democratic power base in the United States and be used to elect Rothschild's frontmen, such as Woodrow Wilson, to the presidency to carry out the bidding for the Rothschild. Now, tell me that ain't crazy. See what we dealing with? Keep in mind, times of the Gentiles, right? You see how they getting down now. But back then, that's what they doing now. Man, crazy. So Woodrow Wilson was a sellout as far as in terms of to people who are like Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln or whatever, you know, who want to do away with the European influence, right? Woodrow Wilson is a sellout compared to how these people will look at him. All right, let's keep going. In America, John Swinton, then the preeminent New York journalist, was the guest of honor at a banquet given him by the leaders of his craft. Someone who knew neither the press nor Swinton offered a toast to the independent press. Swinton outraged his colleagues by replying, what did he say? There is no such thing at this date of the world's history in America as an independent press. You know it, and I know it. Wow. A couple too many cocktails. They're speaking the truth, man. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinion. And if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinion out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things, and any of you who would be so foolish as to write honest opinions will be out on the streets looking for another job. If I allowed my honest opinion to appear in one issue of my paper before 24 hours, my occupation will be gone. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. He's speaking some facts here. The business of journalism, the business of the journalist, is to destroy the truth. Whew. Wow. To lie outright, to prevent, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of the mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread. Woo, wow, powerful words. You know it, and I know it. And what folly is this toasting an independent press? Yeah, he's fed up. He's fed up. He's speaking facts, but he's fed up. We are tools and vassals of rich men behind the scenes. We are jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. Wow. Yo. Oh, man. Yeah. See, what you starting is the trend you seeing is, especially back then, people are getting fed up, and they starting to speak out. But ultimately, they end up getting hushed. You know, like I said, you didn't go in school and hear about this in any social study books or your history lessons. You didn't hear about the people who spoke out against, even though they might have been considered professors, deans, experts, presidents. You know what I mean? Like some fancy, powerful title in today's time they might have possessed. But those need the quotes you're gonna hear from them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's being controlled, it's being slanted. Wow. 1881, President James A. Garfield, the 20th president of the United States, who lasted only 100 days. Wow, he only lasted 100 days. States 2 weeks before his assassination, before he is assassinated. Okay, so there's a president that was assassinated. So it's already got Lincoln and we got James A. Garfield. He says, whoever controls the volume of money in our country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. And when you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled, one way or another, by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originates. Well, we see why he probably got assassinated, right? We see why he probably got assassinated. On March 13th, the Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, is assassinated in St. Petersburg following several assassination attempts that began in 1866, less than a year after President Lincoln's victory in America's Civil War. And I wonder if that really pushed the ball because he helped Abraham Lincoln. So, yeah. All right. Skip down to 1891. The British Labour Party leader makes the following statement on the subject of the Rothschilds. What did he say? This blood-sucking crew has been the cause of untold mischief and misery in Europe during the present century and has piled up its prodigious wealth chiefly through fomenting wars between states which ought never to have quarreled. He also goes further to state, he says, whenever there is trouble in Europe, whereas rumors of wars circulate, stop right there, rumors of wars, right? Remember, time of the Gentiles. And he talks about the end times, wars and rumors of wars, right? Okay. So he says, whenever there is trouble in Europe, wherever rumors of war circulate, and men's minds are distraught with fear of change and calamity, you may be sure that a hook. See, I'm gonna say that because YouTube ain't gonna give me for that. Yeah, but you see what he said, right? Spoke of his nose. Rothschild is at his game somewhere near the region of disturbance. Wow. There's people upset, family. So comments like this worried the Rothschilds, and towards the end of the 1800s, they purchased Reuters news agency so they can exercise some control over the media. Oh, wow. Yep. This is why the media is controlled, family. So in 1895, Edmunds James D. Rothschild, the youngest son of Jacob Mayer Rothschild, visits Palestine to see the Jewish colonies he funded as a result of the Rothschilds' engineered pogroms in Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. So these pogroms is associated with getting the Jays to America, but it's also associated with finding a homeland for the Jays. Keep that in mind. These pogroms. He is impressed and vows to continue to supply funds to these colonies in furtherance of the long-term Rothschild objective of creating a Rothschild-owned Jayist state. You see? You see? All right, 1897. The Rothschilds found the World Zionist Congress to promote Zionism, and Zionism is portrayed as a political movement seeking to secure a homeland for the Jays, but is in reality a conspiracy to bring the entire world under a world government administered and controlled by Jays, and particularly the Rothschilds. Let's stop right there. So the world government, they're telling you, family, the world government, the one world government is going to be controlled by the Jays, but even deeper, the Rothschild. Now, when you think of the one world government, you're thinking of the man of sin. You're thinking of the man of sin. You're thinking of the Antichrist, the son of perdition, the lawless one, the one Satan himself is going to possess. Now, if you're following along carefully, almost everything that this family plans to do comes into fruition. It happens. It does. They plan things. It might take a while, but it happens. Just keep that in mind. All right, so they say particularly the Rothschilds. It says the first meeting of the World Zionist Congress is arranged to take place in Munich. However, due to the opposition from local Jays, this meeting has to be moved to Versailles, Switzerland, and takes place on the 29th of August. The meeting is chaired by Ashkenazi J. Theodor Herzl, who will go on to state in his diaries. He says, it is essential that the suffering of Jays become worse. He's a J, right? So he says it's essential that the suffering of the Jays become worse. Why are you doing this to your own people? Let's keep reading. This will assist in the realization of our plans. I have an excellent idea. I shall induce anti-Semites to liquidate Jay's wealth. The anti-Semites will assist us thereby in that they will strengthen the persecution and oppression of Jays, and anti-Semites shall be our best friends. Now, today, if you are anti-Semitic, you are blackballed, banned, right? But back then, this man, right? He says they are our friends because they're carrying out our agenda. They are carrying out our agenda. This is a mind-blowing stuff right here, family. This is some mind-blowing stuff. So Herzl is subsequently elected president of the World Zionist Organization, which adopts the Rothschilds' red hexagram as the Zionist flag, which 51 years later will end up as the flag of Israel. Come on now. Y'all gotta admit, this is crazy, man. This is some crazy stuff. They going after their own, the push agenda. You slaughtering and making your own suffer. Man. All right, let's skip down to 1898. So Pope Leo I guess that's 8. I don't know Roman numeral. But Pope Leo states the following on the subject of usury and charging of interest on money. He says, on one hand, there is a party which holds the power because it holds the wealth, which has in its grasp all labor and all trade, which manipulates for its own benefit and its own purpose all the sources of supply, and which is powerfully represented in the Council of State itself. On the other side, there is the needy and the powerless multitude, sore and suffering. Mm-hmm. Repac. What? How do you say that? Rapacious. Rapacious usury. Yeah, rapacious usury, which although more than once condemned by the church, is nevertheless under a different form, but with the same guilt, still practiced by avaricious, avaricious, and grasping men. Hey, family, I'm not the best reader. I'm just trying to get y'all the information. Don't laugh at me. But let me keep going though. So that a small number of very rich men have been able to lay upon the masses of the poor a yoke little better than slavery itself. That's what that Pope said, man. This is what that Pope said. Okay, let's go to 1899. Right? I think we're getting closer to 2 hour mark, so I'm going to close this out. Look like it's going to be another part. I apologize, family, but it's just, hey, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let's get the truth out there. All right, so in 1899, due to the discovery of vastly increasing amount of wealth in gold and diamonds within South Africa, the Rothschilds, through their agent, Lord Alfred Minor, and Cecil Rhodes, sent 400,000 British soldiers. They always call the British soldiers. You notice that? They didn't use Britain is their personal bodyguard, family. Guess who their personal bodyguard is today? You know it, America. But anyway, 400,000 British soldiers over to fight against the enemy, which consists of 30,000 Boer farmers with rifles who would rather not leave their own land. It is during this so-called war that the concentration camp is invented. Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop it, presses. Slow it down. So I'm gonna say a word, and what's the first thing you think of? Concentration camp. First thing you think of is, the Holocaust, right? Which was bad. It was bad. And anytime you take a life or put somebody in extreme conditions, that's bad. No human being should go through that. Period. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm reading here is, so it says that when the Rothschilds send British soldiers to South Africa because they discovered the riches in South Africa, the diamonds, right? Blood diamonds, right? Think about the movie Blood Diamonds, right? Sorry about that, family. My family. Sorry about that, family. I had a had a call, so lost my train of thought. But listen, so you got Blood Diamonds. You got all these movies talking about it, right? They discovered the overgrown wealth there, which led them to sending soldiers over there, and now they're talking about concentration camps. You get what I'm saying? So basically, based off history, the Holocaust wasn't the first time there was concentration camps, right? It's fair to say that, right? All right, let's keep reading. Okay. So he says, it is during this so-called war that the concentration camp is invented, when British rounded up anyone sympathetic to the Boers, which included women and children, and placed them into unsanitary, fever-ridden camps. The Rothschild British Army goes on to win this war, and thus the vast wealth in gold and diamonds for the Rothschild. Come on, family. Come on. How crazy is this, man? That's another war, ain't it? It's technically another war. We had what? What's that? 4? We're talking about nations fighting, right? That's what we're talking about. All right. So it says, indeed, in a speech he gave on October 30th in 1937, Rear Admiral Henry Hamilton Beamish had the following to say on the subject of the Boer War. This war is named the Boer War. It says the Boer War occurred 37 years ago. Boer means farmer. Many criticize a great power like Britain for trying to wipe out the Boers. Upon making inquiry, I found all the gold in the diamond mines of South Africa were owned by Jays. That Rothschild controlled gold, Samuel controlled silver, Baum controlled other mining, and Moses controlled base metals. Anything these people touch, they inevitably pollute. Wow. Current president of the Transvaal Republic in South Africa, Stephanus Johannes Paul Kruger, would state the following this year regarding the only way he could envision peace in South Africa. If it were conceivable to eject the Jays, monopolists, from this country's neck and crop without incurring war with Great Britain, then the problem of everlasting peace would be solved. See that? They know that if they beef with them, they got Britain right at their doorstep. They know. They know. Let's go to 1901. We gotta close this one up, family. We gotta close this one up, and definitely will be a part 3 because I do want to finish this. So in 1901, the Jays from the colonies set up in Palestine by Edmund James de Rothschild sends delegation to him, which states the following: if you wish to save the Jay settlement, first take your hands from it and for once permit the colonists to have the possibility of correcting for themselves what needs correcting. Edmund James de Rothschild is not at all pleased to receive this delegation, and he says to them, I created the Yushiv, I alone. Therefore, no man, neither colonists nor organizations, have the right to interfere in my plans. And that Yushiv is the Jayish state, basically the homeland. They're still working on the homeland, remember? Still working on the homeland. Because if you the people, you got to be in the land, right? Okay. Now, we know scripture says Yah's going to bring the true chosen of Israel into the land. But you see what they're doing. It's not Yah doing it, they're doing it. So, all right. And you know what? This is a good spot to go ahead and let me stop it right here. I'm going to stop it right here. So just family, this is crazy. This is mind-blowing stuff. This is good information, though. As far as knowing history and stuff like that, we see what happened in the Civil War, how that happened, and why it happened. You know, America was minding its own business, but that was the problem. America wasn't using their banks. America wasn't dependent on them. So, let's start a riff, which led to slavery ending. Okay, let's call that Yah's mercy. I definitely am. But at the same time, you know, are people still slaves? More mental slaves than anything. This is Satan's world. So it's just, it's deeper than just art, people, because as we see that all humanity is under their yoke. Their chains is invisible. So we're going to end it right here, family. So please like the video. Please subscribe. And until next time, I'm going to leave you in peace as it came to you. Peace. Shalom. Y'all bless, family.